Welcome to the Hugs Not Drugs podcast. I'm John Barleycorn, and I have a wonderful guest today. And before that, I'm just going to explain some preliminaries before we get to Carol Cruz, the podcaster for Cruzin on the Edge. Would say hello, Carol. Come on.
Hello there to the Hugs and Drugs audience. Thank you, John, for having me today.
Okay. I just want to explain what this podcast is, and I also want to just thank the music that you heard at the beginning was my son, Harry, and he has a band, and they played the tune Sketchbook. So thank you, Harry, for that. What is this podcast? What is the Hugs Not Drugs podcast? Well, so the Hugs Not Drugs podcast can help motivated people in recovery from addictions and they can get additional skills for their personal health by enjoying the inspirational stories and the educational information. And however you want to understand this is I am very funny. So there's going to be lots of entertainment here, whether you know it or not. Maybe one day you'll know it. At any rate, I have three characters. I'm John Barleycorn. That's not my real name, of course. That's a nickname in the Fellowship of 12-Step. People dub me that. So I'm using that as a stage name. I'm also using a persona, Hugs Not Drugs, that came from my book, The Transformation of Dr. Uggs. And then I have the character Dr. Uggs. Say something, Dr. Uggs.
Boy, this is going to be quite the challenge for an old man, isn't it?
You got that right. And, of course, we have a third persona, and that is Hugs Not Drugs, who has the same voice as me. So say something, Hugs Not Drugs. Yes, I have the same voice as you, but I am a much more spiritual entity than you are, Barleycorn, wouldn't you say? Yeah, you got that right. Okay, so we've explained that, and I'm going to introduce this wonderful person I have here. This is Carol Cruz, and Carol is a podcaster that I met on, what is it?
My seven-figure podcast.
My seven-figure podcast. I came on board about the end of July, and Carol came in October, and we both love it, and we both get an awful lot out of it. So we met each other. We were both in the same field, mental health. And Carol, I had such a great time guest hosting on the Cruzin on the Edge podcast. Thank you for the experience.
Thank you.
For our Hugs Not Drugs listeners who may not have ever met you, and this is the first time, how would you usually describe who you are and what you do?
Oh, great question, John. I would say who I am is an innovator, a creator. I have childlike wonder, to what is possible. That is part of who I am. And what I do, it just makes it elevates it that much more as a peer support specialist, as a person in long-term recovery, as a crisis call specialist, wearing many hats like yourself, very much centered around addiction and recovery and mental health challenges. But there's so much more: wellness, spirituality, and I'm still uncovering and discovering new things about myself.
Great.
And what I'm capable of doing.
Great.
So, thank you.
What was it like, Carol, growing up?
That's great because it really tags that question. Thank you for the question. That tags into my memoir. That it's been a memoir for a long time. My goal is to have it at least finished draft in November and released in December before the new year.
Wonderful.
It's called Into Me I See. And growing up, I didn't grow up traditionally with the same mother and father. I did have my biological mother, but my biological father, who is African American, in '63, they could not marry. My mother was actually married to my sister and my brother's father, and she was still married to him. So growing up was very complex. And into me, I see what it was really the best title that I could really connect to, because I didn't see myself belonging in too many places.
Mm-hmm.
Not only just being a woman of color, but being a child, a girl, in the 1960s when there was civil unrest. But we were also in Harlem. There was the Renaissance and party time, and that's where my mother, was introduced to, where she probably wouldn't have been introduced to by her ex-husband, because he was white. But my father was very bold, is what I was told, because I didn't have a long-term relationship with him, where he took her into places to see performers like Red Fox and Moms Mabley in Harlem. And, and again, a black man having a white woman on his arm was like, ooh, but the black community embraced, they didn't chase my mother out of those spaces. She gelled in there with the rest of them. And that lifestyle is what really catapulted her. She already had past stuff, but it kind of moved her into addiction around alcoholism. So growing up, like I said, it was very, very complex, and I'm still finding pieces, discovering new pieces, more so through my biological brother, who lives in Texas and has 7 girls, all adults now with their own children and family. But when I found him back in 2003, literally the blank canvas that I was involved in, that was just integrated in my life, and trying to put stickers or put things that I wanted to be, but didn't know who I was, he started to fill in those blanks and telling me, one being the most important thing, and it really helped me to understand relationships with men, was when my father was a alcoholic, and but the most important thing was to know that he loved me, because I don't remember my dad ever saying, I love you.
Right.
And my brother was able to be his voice.
And Into Me, I See, is coming out in November.
Well, the draft is going to be, and then the launch, I hope to be, and I haven't set a date, but I know we do in my 7-figure podcast, we have to be specific SMART goals, as we do in our behavioral health field. So I would say midnight of December.
Oh my gosh.
11:59 of December 31st.
And I am a believer, because just knowing you as briefly as I do know you, and I do have tickets for the summit, the podcast summit in. I think we're going to go on, and we'll probably see each other January 30th, but it doesn't really start until the 1st of July and the 2nd of July. It will be there.
Right.
So I've got hotel at the Hyatt, and boy, that was an exercise in terror for me. And and
I actually got a roommate that I'm going to get on a call with. She's from Texas, and we have a lot in common. I put it out there on our my 7-figure podcast community. that I was looking for a roommate, and this young lady, she reached out to me, and we're golden. So I have a roommate. The only thing I don't have booked is my flight, which I'll probably wait a little bit to see the prices go down.
So many different types of people that are so kind and professional. Everybody seems so kind and professional in our group, in our community, and it is family. So I really appreciate it. But I want to get back to the mental health field for a minute. That's what we talked about on the Cruising on the Edge podcast. What first drew you into mental health, the field of mental health, and was it a moment? Was it a calling? What unfolded over time?
Another great question. I think for me, my lived experience has always planted the seed for me helping others like me. And maybe that wasn't what I visualized, when I wanted, what do you want to be when you grow up, Carol? Well, I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an actress. That's why I do podcasting now. I get to be on a stage that I get to produce and edit and so on and so forth. So I'm coming full circle to my desires as a kid. But my mother used to always say, Carol, you keep bringing home stray cats and dogs. And that wasn't physically, well, sometimes I would, and wounded birds and squirrels. I got a scratch on the side of my face because I try to grab a squirrel that I thought was hurt on my way home from school. No rabies shots, thank goodness. But I digress. I believe the first time that I stepped into this role, I was very young, and I had a friend who was experiencing some things, but she wouldn't talk about it. But I knew by her body expression and her putting her head down, I had been that kid. Mm-hmm. I had been that one that was told, no one, don't tell our family secrets. And I was also gaslighted, unfortunately, by my mom that, well, at least he's keeping a roof over her head, and he was one of my abusers, and that she was married to, my stepfather. I knew that it was just that intuitive knowing that something was wrong, and there's something came out of me to help me not look at my own stuff and say, how can I help? Or what's wrong? Or you can trust me. And I think that was really the rooting into becoming, a peer support specialist, which didn't come until way later. I've been, in this field for probably not as long as you, probably about 15 years. And, taking classes. I called myself the queen of certifications. I did go back to college because everything was free,
I'm sorry to snort.
Training, it's free. And I was like, okay, that fits my pocketbook. But I was sitting in front of my computer, and I said, is this all it is? I'm X amount of years in recovery. I just felt lost. I felt like I was in the valley and I didn't have a lifeline. No one was people were telling me, Carol, you would be great as a counselor. You know exactly what to say. But there was something that what I heard from other therapists and counselors that had lived experiences that they were told, no, they can't share about their lived experience. And I was like, oh, you can't keep baby in the box, or in the corner, as the show says, the movie, Dirty Dancing, right? Don't keep baby in the corner. And because I had been there, my voice for so long had been pushed down.
Right.
You know, don't say, don't tell, don't be too loud, don't be too proud, don't be too black, you know. And when I took that first course and got state certified, again, the view just opened up. I met some amazing people that literally were mentors and leaders and guided me into this field. I saw the documentary Anonymous People and met Greg Williams, who lives here in Connecticut.
Right on.
And he recruited me onto his board for Connecticut Children and Family. It was a nonprofit that he had. And seeing that film, Anonymous People was like, yeah, that's my platform. That is my platform. And so I've taken that platform not only through clinics and, you know, helping individuals in detox and outpatient, with diagnosis, duly diagnosed, but I've also taken that platform to legislation and changing, you know, bills in regards to women and children, women that are substance users during their pregnancy, which was part of my story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's evolved, and now it's in a different area on this podcast. So yeah, thank you so much again, John, for having me and asking me these questions. I'm like, ooh, okay, I got some work to do. These are just kind of like firing me up. As a friend just texted me the other day, I'm fired up.
Barleycorn here. I just I'm looking over at Dr. Uggs, and he wants to ask questions.
My God, this girl's sensational. You had all these questions right there, and she just answered every one of them without even you asking them. She answered before the degrees, what was Carol Cruz like growing up? Answered that. Nailed it. What first drew you into the mental health field? Nailed it. Was there a moment of calling, something that unfolded over time? Nailed it. Was there a personal experience that deepened your commitment to mental health? She nailed it. This is where I belong, she said. Early in, and that's written right down here. Did you look at all this stuff beforehand?
No, you didn't. You didn't want to look at it. Oh, where did Dr. Uggs go? He just left. Okay. And the fifth one, early in your career, what surprised you about working in the mental health field and no textbook could really prepare you for, and that was your life experience, big time, and then all these mentors, and it was your form to heal, to help somebody else, which is a credo of any good person that has find somebody that needs help and get out of yourself so you can love yourself better.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So mental health professionals often carry a lot of emotionality. What have you learned to care for yourself while caring for others? You nailed that one. How was your emotional or spiritual growth evolved along your professional work? I think you got that one down, mother of pearl. And I love the fact that I identify with your wanting to be an entertainer.
Well, that's why I got him over there, right?
Okay. What do you wish for the public to understand about mental health professionals as people, not just providers?
Wow. Yeah, another great question, and it's actually part of the promo when I dropped your episodes. And yes, I hope folks listen in. I will be getting it on audio soon, but right now it's visual on YouTube on Cruzin on the Edge. And recovery is not 9 to 5. Recovery from anything, right. We know that there's people still recovering from COVID, maybe not the physical part, but the emotional and the mental part of, keeping themselves isolated. And we know that addiction, mental health does not do well in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
It continually needs to be connected. And so I'm probably going to go off script because a little bit, I kind of forgot a little bit of the question, but I'll try to stay on task with it.
Just mental health professionals
what
as people.
surprises me in regards to this field is the response from the so-called quote-unquote professionals. I know you are a professional, but you're also a professional with lived experience. But I've also seen professionals with lived experience turn the corner and saying, "What are you doing? You're not helping people. You're hurting them."
Yeah.
And because I'm hearing from them, and I know them, and I'm getting to know them, and I know what your background is. Not to be bashing the professions, it's not them against us. It once was, it's still in some spaces it is, but I realize that my story, it becomes powerful the more I tell it more to the to people in legislation, to the professionals, because they may have a loved one that might be struggling, but they're distracted and they're in other places. They may be helping that loved one, but there's so much stigma. That was another surprise. There's so much stigma within the profession. And I had a doctor. I was maybe a week or two on the job working detox in one of the largest detoxes in New Haven County, and saying, with her German accent, if you would have told me I would be standing next to or allowing, because she was chief medical officer, allowing people like yourself. Thank God she didn't say you people. I would have told her something, but that's my little, voice. That's my little Carol voice. I would have, she said, I would have said you were crazy, because the fear was, and it still is, that I'm going to go out and use with the people, the peers that I'm working with. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't like to call them clients. That's more clinical term. I am building a rapport of equal, the equal different, the difference is that, yes, I have some training and I have more years in recovery, but I think that we work better together as a team, and letting the individual that is seeking sobriety or some type of help, to let them know they are not alone. Taking what we hear at a meeting and saying, "Hey, you're not alone. We're here to help," but also meeting them where they're at. So it's not 9 to 5. It's not cookie cutter, but we could make that. And I see more of us as peers, as clinicians, being able to do that, but with following the lead with the people that we're serving.
Yep, I'm on board with all this, because your ability to lead is very feminine in its style. It's circular. We're all on the same level, and we all are helping each other. It's like being heaven and hell are the same place. Voltaire said this one time: heaven and hell are the same place. You're tied down. You're in heaven, and you're tied down to a table, a banquet table, beautiful banquet of food and everything. But everybody's cursing each other in hell because they can't get their pitchforks into their mouths. The pitchfork's too long. Heaven's the same scenario. Everybody's got a pitchfork that they can't get their own food in, but they're having a great time because they're sharing the food with each other. Right. And our ability to do that, that's a feminine leadership style. I like to do it too, much more than a hierarchical style. I'm the boss.
I agree with that, John, on the feminine side, but I also, through my recovery journey, I have also embraced my masculine side. I believe that it is the yin and the yang. It is keeps me aligned. Not to say, I'm out there playing sports or, whatever stigmatized, we put behind feminine and masculine.
Right.
I think for me, it helped me to find little Carol and also protect little Carol. There had to been a more masculine side because I didn't have a positive male figure in my life.
Gotcha.
Growing up.
Yeah, and also there's this concept called transference and countertransference. As an authority figure, we remind people of a father, a mother, whatever, a sister, a brother, a friend, and they reflect that in their conversations to us, and they're reminding us of people too, our countertransference. And you have to be awful healthy to be able to recognize your countertransference and not let that sabotage the relationship that you have. And that's one of the things that I am making mistakes at, leaps and bounds sometimes, and then have to snap to, I've gotten off the trail, get back up on the trail, and just explain situations. But I want to get into podcasting a little bit too, because where did you get the idea for Cruising on the Edge? Where did it come from, and what does the edge mean to you personally?
Oh, great question. So Cruzin, so back in 2019, there's an organization. Actually, I'm going out to see the founder for my birthday in a couple weeks in Vegas. And so Cruzin, I met this young lady from Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl myself. And she was at this Mobilized Recovery event in Las Vegas in 2019. And at that time, I was doing YouTubes under Carol Cruz coaching. Not a whole lot, it wasn't, I was just kind of dipping my toe into different things. I had, at that time, I also had a wellness center, a transformation wellness center here in Milford. It was a little 550 square foot space where we did yoga and meditation and Reiki and all kinds of great things. And I did recovery coach training there as well. And but this young lady that I met in Las Vegas, I asked her if she wouldn't mind coming up to my hotel room and doing a recording for my YouTube for Carol Cruz Coaching. But I also had this other name, which I'm working on revamping it, a Girlfriend's Guide to Recovery. And someone had given me that name through a training process, through mental health first aid training. She said, oh, you need to start a blog called Girlfriend's Guide. And I was like, ooh, I like that, Girlfriend's Guide to Recovery. So I am working on that. So the Cruzin came from, because I would call her Miss K, and she was actually my first interview on my new platform of Cruising on the Edge. And she says she would go around, and everything she would sign off on social media would be Cruzin, and she would elongate it. I didn't want to do that far. So that's where the Cruzin came from. My last name is Cruz, and by marriage, no español, poquito Spanish, so only by marriage. And on the edge was everything that I lived my life, and I still do. I don't do things the normal way. I have embraced my weirdness, and there are times where people would look at me, and again, I don't care how people see me or talk about me. If you're talking about me, that means I must be really important, right? But the edge is, I think we all live on the edge. We're living in it right now with this current climate of political unrest and civil unrest. Again, history is repeating itself in a lot of ways. And I think life isn't, not that I'm a thrill seeker. I am not about to jump out of a plane, but my life in addiction was on the edge, but my life in recovery, the edge it's not always smooth, but it is exciting.
Yeah. What have you learned about vulnerability? I'll ask you this because I don't see you as a someone that doesn't deal with her vulnerability in any kind of negative way. I don't see you going down that rabbit hole. But what have you learned about vulnerability? Because I think that's one of the biggest things that people in early recovery have to learn how to do to get rid of guilt, anger, and shame. I call it gas in the heart. Guilt, anger, and shame. One has to be vulnerable, and it's really tough to do because who wants to do that? But what have you learned about that concept of vulnerability, both your guest and your own hosting in a podcast?
Another great question. And, Brene Brown comes to mind in the topic
Yes,
of
ma'am.
vulnerability. I know she did a YouTube. She is also a woman in long-term recovery. She's open about that. She has a master's in science and all kinds of great things. I don't know all her credentials, but I do remember parts of that message in that YouTube, and I actually wanted to watch it again. But I have been part of book studies in some of her books. And, vulnerability, you mentioned it, shame. And I think we get confused about, we come in very vulnerable, right? Very raw when we're from active addiction into early recovery. And many of us want to hold on to the things that protected us, our shield, right? We don't want to let our be vulnerable to people. Are you serious? You really want to help me? Because I'll give you a quick story. My DCF worker, the children and family worker, her name was Paulette Lorette. She's since passed away, and here in Connecticut. And she would show up at my door. And she would say, "Okay, Carol, what are we going to do to show up for life today?" And she would take her tag, flip it over her shoulder, and she would go in for the hug. And I would be like, "Oh, no, don't touch me, don't touch me." Why? Because I didn't feel deserving. I did not want to give this person those parts of me because I was so shamed. How could you possibly see me as a human being? And that can also go back to my ancestry, that we persons of color were not looked at as human beings, but we became stronger through our vulnerability. And I think that message of, there is not weakness through being vulnerable. There's strength being vulnerable. And that is what has driven me to, to step into a space that I've never been in and speak my truth. You don't have to believe it. You could judge it all you want, but I'm speaking from my heart, which is very vulnerable, and I don't no longer feel shame when I speak my story.
In recovery and good mental health, a strong person is vulnerable. And you want to say something, Dr. Uggs?
Boy, John Forlenza-Bailey wrote the transformation of Dr. Uggs, but we got the transformation of Carol Cruz here. Wow, you have come a long way, baby.
Hey, yeah.
All right. I could go on. I mean, we've gone past the 30-minute mark. You know that.
Okay. I have a few more minutes.
Okay. Can I do a commercial right now?
Sure.
Say something. I have the only reason I have Dr. Uggs on here is to do the commercials.
Well, you can't get rid of me. You get rid of me. You get rid of Huggy. You get rid of you, Barleycorn. And by the way, full disclosure here, we're just characters on the podcast. the real person here is John Forlenza-Bailey, who wrote these 2 books that sponsors this. And he wrote The Transformation of Dr. Uggs, and that's an original fairy tale that explains the progression of the disease of chemical dependency. It's not intended to be a story about blaming others for the acquisition of an illness. This fairy tale is intended to explain, not to blame. It is a story of discovery, insight, acceptance, and finally, the right choices to live a drug-free if one is chemically dependent. There it is, Carol. And
I love it.
And this is a
Gotta get my copies.
This is a little. You'll get it. You'll get it. That's for sure. The Road to Wellness Workbook is a workbook for. It's a workbook designed to provide education, emotional support, and inspiration to persons suffering from addiction. It offers step-by-step lessons to people striving to turn their lives around regarding abstinence, relapse prevention, family dynamics, self-assessment to continue to discover self day by day. Recovery's up to you, mentorships help, journals help, but you must exchange and surrender destructive behaviors for constructive ways of handling day-to-day stressors or triggers of life. No one deserves to continue to suffer from active addiction. Get better and do the work. Well, thank you, Dr. Uggs, for doing that. And I'm going to ask another question of what is next for you? We've kind of answered this already, but it's no cheating to repeat. What's next for you personally, professionally, or creatively?
Well, I mentioned early on that I also wear the hat now. Currently, I don't do much in-person recovery coaching, things like that. I work for a crisis call behavioral health center. It's based out of Massachusetts, and when I first started the job, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I could do this. I have dealt with difficult, chaotic, very crisis in person, people in homelessness and many other things. But 7 months now in, I do find, I wouldn't say a sense of peace, but I do find gratifying that I'm able to communicate and be there and meet those folks where they're at. I just want to share real quick a call that I had the other night, and I share it because the young man was a week in recovery, and I say young man, he was the age of my son. So you mentioned transference. It's sometimes it's hard when I get a call of a family the age of my son. But again, I wear that hat, I roll it back, and I realize it's not about me, it's about them. And I use that analogy, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. And this young man with 7 days, and it wasn't his first go around, but he had gotten out of detox, in homelessness, calling me from outside where it's probably like 10 degrees, 9 or 10 degrees where he was at. I could hear him sniffling. He mentioned that he was hungry. I asked him if he was safe and he had someplace to go. But when I said, just keep doing what you're doing. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And he said, get this, John, I am the light.
That's
To
powerful.
me, we had a mini meeting for one. I did give him some resources where he could call into an AA meeting because he didn't have internet. And him responding. And also, I said, I'm in recovery too. And he said, if no one told you today, you're a miracle. Like, we get those things. We don't forget them when we go into when we're in active addiction or we've had a relapse or a reoccurrence, right? We don't have the built-in. Once it touches you, once recovery touches you, we hope you'll keep going. We know that some people don't. And they do, I don't want to say they give up, but their disease takes over, right?
Yeah.
So what I see myself going forward is still being that mentor, still being that guide, still being that coach. I don't think that hat I prefer that hat over being corporate and administrative assistant or office manager. Although I wear those hats in my business, the business hat. But that I want to grow the podcast. I believe in independent media. I watched a well-known veteran in independent media be arrested last Friday night at midnight while he was going to be on the Grammys on that Friday or Sunday last night. And I don't like what I see that this administration is trying to silence us. All of us. Doesn't matter where your background is, what your color skin is. If you are in resistance, they are going coming for you. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, keep coming, because I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to shut up for the people that I serve, or the community, or my family. And so I see that also evolving into book 2 or 3, who knows. I just see at the age of 62, I don't have that wish. I sometimes do it. Wish I was a little younger, and starting this off. But, I am who I am. I don't feel 62 going on 63. And I am really that child, like I said in the beginning, I have that sense of wonder and spirit that God, higher power, got my back.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what's up and coming.
Well, this is where you and I can only make jokes about stuff because it is so painful not to. So when I there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a freight train. But in active addiction, there is light at the tunnel, and it is a freight train. So I just heard some tragedy in my home group in Connecticut. Someone died, and they weren't sick. They were sick with the disease, but they weren't sick otherwise. And I won't mention names or anything like that, but for goodness sake, this is such serious business. And all I can do a lot of times is want to see people smile again. That was my role in the family, the cheerful one, the mascot and stuff. So I still got that going on for me. Let's end on a real positive note. If someone listening right now is struggling and feels alone, what would you want them to hear?
If they're not hearing my voice, I hope they hear someone's voice. I hope they allow themselves to be vulnerable. We can find you where you're at, but not to say that it's an easy road, and it doesn't happen quickly. The recovery process, and not if you want it or when you're ready, because I think those are defeating terms.
Mm-hmm.
But that, hope is real.
Yes.
I know there's slogans out there, recovery is possible. My thought is that it's not might be possible for everyone. But if I have an investment, if I'm willing to put an investment in me, or even if you want to put an investment, if you put an investment in yourself, but if that doesn't feel right and you want to invest in me, not to say that I have all the greatest things to say and do, again, allow yourself to be vulnerable and take a risk. You took many risks. You were on the edge in your active addiction or mental health challenges or both. Why not? If you choose to go back to the lifestyle that you lived, I've done it. And it didn't change anything. Just like the young man that said to me, I could drink right now. That's why I'm calling, because I had urges. But I know it's not going to change anything. It's not going to bring back my 5 kids or my wife who is in a halfway house, or get a job, or feed my belly. And to me, that is telling that person, allowing themselves to tell their truth.
That's right. That's right. And getting it out and talking it up instead of drinking it down is everything, or using it down in some capacity.
Right.
Okay. Any other final words, young lady?
No, my friend, this has been amazing to be a guest on your podcast. And I know we'll have other conversations. Looking forward to seeing you in July. I also may have a family reunion right after the summit. And, so I'll be renting a car to drive off to another part in Georgia. And with my podcast stick and mic and ready to roll and get some family good stuff, history. But yeah, you and I never believe in coincidences. And just like I didn't believe in a coincidence of the call I got the other night, I don't believe in a coincidence when I put out there. And when you said what you said and you reached out to me with my post in a chat, I'm just grateful, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next for both of us.
Yep. Well, Cruzin on the Edge, if you haven't seen it yet, do yourself a favor and see it, because it is the bomb. And on the Hugs Not Drugs podcast, we believe connection is medicine. What does a hug, literal or metaphorical, mean to you in healing work? Well, I hope it means that you'll give somebody a hug. So love somebody, love yourself, and love each other. That's right.
We just kissed her hand for those that can't see us.
All right. Well, let's see. Now
I'm looking over at Hugs Not Drugs. His face is red, beat, embarrassed. Carol got to him too much.
Okay, we're gonna close out now with Harry's sketchbook, and I want to thank you, Carol. You were great. Appreciate you so much.